Hello my beautiful friends, welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make spaghetti and meatballs. I love spaghetti and meatballs, and to be honest, this recipe wasn't planned. I am currently filming my all-time favorite apple pie recipe, and it's fall, it's apple season, Thanksgiving's coming up soon, so I wanted to show you how to make my favorite apple pie recipe. That's in a different video. I was gonna make dinner while I waited for the pie to be done, and it is pouring down outside. It is raining so much. I woke up, it was a beautiful day. I was like, okay, I'm gonna film my apple pie recipe today, and all of a sudden everything's black, can't see anything outside. I'm looking because the windows is right there and it's just a mess, but I was able to find my ring light that I never ever use, but that's not the point. The point is this video isn't planned, but I am really excited to show you because it's just my favorite. This is one of those recipes that whenever I ask someone that's coming over, what do you want me to make you? What do you want to eat? They say spaghetti and meatballs, because my spaghetti and meatballs are that delicious. I mean, I'm not bragging, but I am, because it's really that good. As you can see, not a lot of ingredients. Throughout the years, I've tried so many spaghetti and meatballs, and some of them, they just add way too much stuff to it. I like my spaghetti and meatballs really simple. I like my meatballs as simple as they can be. I'm gonna stop talking now because I'm hungry and this is my dinner, so I want to get filming. Okay, so you're gonna need 2 eggs, slightly beaten. You're going to need ground beef, ground pork. Please use a combination of both. The ground pork gives it such nice flavor and texture, and it just keeps the meatballs nice and moist. I'm using a pretty lean ground beef, but because I don't like my meatballs to be just drowning in fat. If you use a really fatty ground beef, that tends to happen, so keep that in mind. Okay, so that's for the meatballs. You're also going to need a little bit of milk, breadcrumbs, some fresh parsley. I obviously love to add Parmesan cheese to my meatballs. I feel like it's essential. It keeps it nice and moist. It gives it a really nice flavor. But I also love to add pecorino. I think it's called pecorino romano to my meatballs. The combination from the pecorino, which is a little more sharp, is actually pecorino. It's made out of sheep's milk, and Parmesan cheese or Parmigiano Reggiano, it's made out of cow's milk. So this is a little more sharp, but just the depth of flavor it adds to your meatballs is like undeniable. It's so delicious. I like to use some really good Parmigiano Reggiano. Some Parmesan cheese will work, but please grate your own. It really makes a difference, I'm begging you. Okay, so that's done. And then, oh, okay, for the sauce you're gonna need some. I showed this before in my other video where I showed you how to make the spaghetti al pomodoro. This is my all-time favorite brand of tomatoes. Like, I use a few, but this is like really like high up there. It's really good. And I used the crushed tomatoes from them, salt, pepper, a little bit of olive oil. I do like to add some fresh basil to my sauce, not to my meatballs. To my meatballs I like parsley. I don't know why, don't ask me. I like to add basil to the sauce, parsley to my meatballs. That's just it. And then of course you're gonna need some spaghetti. I have, as you can see, a huge bowl here. The first thing I'm gonna do is add my breadcrumbs. I like to add the binding ingredients first, because if you add your meat to the whole thing, what's gonna do, you're gonna overwork your meat and it's gonna be a little tough. So obviously we don't want tough meatballs. Sometimes I do forget and I'll just add everything in there if I'm in a hurry, but try, if you have a little more time, just try to add the rest of the ingredients first, because it works a little better that way. So add to the breadcrumbs, I like to add the milk. That's gonna get the breadcrumbs really nice and moist, because I'm using just like regular, dried breadcrumbs. I'm not using fresh, so that makes them a little more moist. To this, I add my 2 beaten eggs, obviously pecorino, and I'm gonna grate my Parmesan cheese. Okay, that looks maybe a little more. That can never be too much cheese. I'm gonna cut off the rind of my Parmesan cheese and I'm gonna add it to the sauce while I'm making the sauce. That's also going to give it a really nice flavor. Let me just add some salt. You don't want to add too much salt because the pecorino and the Parmesan cheese is quite salty. So I personally don't like to add too much salt. Generous amount of black pepper. And I'm just going to quickly chop up my parsley. You need about 1 tablespoon of parsley. Like I always said, my written recipe, you can always find it either on the website, anitasrecipes.com, or you can find it in the description box. I always leave a link for it there. That goes right in here. Mix everything together. You can do it with a fork, you can do it with your hands. Everything is well mixed. Now we go ahead and we add ground beef, ground pork, and you want to mix this just until it comes together. Like I said, you don't want to over mix it, otherwise your meatballs are gonna be tough, and that's not what we want. Okay, so this looks pretty good. It's now time to make our meatballs. I like to do it with a cookie scoop, that way my meatballs are all the same size. Get a little bit of your mix and you just roll it into a little bowl, little meatball, and there you have it. It's really this simple. You can actually make them smaller if you like and serve them as appetizers, or if you like this size, you can serve them as appetizers with a sauce and a little bit of crispy baguette, and let me tell you, you will be the talk of the party. So I'm gonna keep rolling my meatballs here because it's gonna take a while. There's a lot of it, but as soon as I'm done doing this, I'll show you the next step. Okay, so this is my last meatball. So you can see it makes quite a lot. I didn't count it, but I believe it makes about 24, 25 meatballs. If you make it about this size, obviously if you make them bigger, it's gonna make less. If you make them smaller, it's gonna make more. So I'm not gonna cook all of my meatballs today because that's a lot for just Adrian and I. So I'm only gonna cook about half because I do want some leftovers, and then the rest I'm going to freeze because they freeze so well. I'm gonna wash my hands. I'm gonna clean up a little bit because I've got a mess going on, and I'll see you right back. I'm gonna make my meatballs in the Dutch oven today. That's where I usually make it because it's enough space for me to cook the sauce in. We're gonna start by searing our meatballs. We wanna develop a nice little color around them. We're gonna make the sauce in the same pot without rinsing it, without doing anything to it, because that fat from the meatballs is going to give your sauce the most delicious flavor. So all I'm gonna do is add about a tablespoon of oil, extra virgin olive oil, I prefer for this recipe, to my Dutch oven, and I'm going to pop my meatballs ready here. Not a lot of oil because remember, you have ground beef, ground pork, which they are going to render a little bit of oil. I'm gonna flip my meatball, and you want something like that looks like this. You just wanna, you're not cooking them through at all. You just wanna develop a little bit of color. You do want to be pretty gentle with them because they can break very quickly. I'm going to remove them from the pot. I'm going to add 1 to 2 tablespoons of oil. Into this, I'm going to add my chopped onion and my garlic. I just like to smash the garlic. We're just going to give this a quick little stir. We want to wait for the onions and the garlic to cook for about 2 minutes before we add the tomatoes. Onions are looking pretty good. I'm going to add my crushed tomatoes. I'm going to fill this whole can of water. I'm going to add it right in here as well. I'm going to add the water right into my pot. To add some salt. Remember, like I said, I cut off the rind of my Parmesan cheese. I'm gonna add a little bit of pepper. Last but not least, we're gonna add some basil. We're gonna give everything a good stir. Now, I'm gonna let the sauce cook for about 15 minutes, partially covered, and then I'm going to add the meatballs. Okie dokie, so my sauce has been cooking for about 15 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and place the meatballs back into the pan. very careful, pop them right in. I'm going to partially cover this and I'll be right back to show you the final result. Meatballs have been cooking for about 40 minutes and they are looking fantastic. I ended up making the whole batch and I'm gonna tell you why now. But this is what you want to look like. As you can see, the sauce has reduced. You do want to taste it for seasoning, see if you need to add a little more salt or a little more pepper. If you find that you want the sauce a little bit sweeter, you can by all means add a tiny bit of granulated sugar. Okay, so my sauce, oops, let me take out this piece of garlic. I always like to take out the garlic when I see them. Okay, so my sauce is done. I'm gonna show you what I personally like to do. I mean, I usually tend to do this in a pot, but since you really can see the pot that well, I'm gonna do it here in the skillet because I'm like, you know, I like to do it here too. So I like to cook the sauce. My pasta is also, you really can see it, but my pasta, it's done. It's nice and al dente. So I like to turn on my heat. I like to add some sauce to a skillet. I add some pasta. Make sure you drag a little bit of water with you because that's going to help emulsify the sauce. It's gonna make it delicious. I just dropped a whole bunch of pasta on the stove, but I'm fine, it's fine. We're all fine. So I like to, like I said, cook sauce with my spaghetti. I like to add a tiny bit, like about two tablespoons of that water. I'm gonna let this cook together. That's looking good. Got my plate here. I'm gonna serve this up just like that. Okay, now I like to get my meatballs. They're over here. I like to place it on top with a little more sauce because you can never have too much sauce. I don't know why I'm singing. I'm just really excited about dinner. Maybe because I'm really hungry. So a little more sauce on top of my meatball. Generous amount of Parmigiano Reggiano. And when I mean generous, I mean generous. And few fresh basil leaves. And there you have it, spaghetti and meatballs. Let me tell you, this will blow your socks off. It's so tell me that plate doesn't look beautiful. Look at that. Oh, delicious. I'm gonna let this cool down for a second. Like I was saying, I ended up cooking my whole batch of meatballs just because I remember that I have some bread, and this is what I'm gonna do tomorrow for lunch. I'm gonna get that bread, I'm gonna slice it up, I'm gonna add some meatballs, I'm gonna spoon a little bit of that beautiful tomato sauce, I'm gonna add a couple of slices of provolone cheese because that's what I have on hand. I'm gonna pop it in the oven and I'm gonna toast the bread onto the cheese is nice and melted, and that's gonna be my lunch. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna cook the whole batch because that sounds pretty good to me if it doesn't sound to you. Actually, no. I wanna try the meatball first because essentially that's the queen of this dish, the meatball. That is pure meatball perfection. It's flavorful. It's juicy. It's not too overly spiced because I don't like a super overly spiced meatball. I really like to let the ground pork and the ground beef shine with just a little bit of Parmesan, a little bit of salt, pepper, parsley. Perfection. I'm gonna try this together. Hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. This delicious spaghetti meatballs. I'm telling you, best spaghetti and meatballs ever. Hope you guys enjoyed. Remember, the written recipe is on my website. You can find a link to it in the description box. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.